Hello guys, welcome back to the channel on this bank holiday Friday. Yes, that means we've got 3 days off, Monday off. Isaac's off on holiday today, guys. John's in, but I'm on my own in the build room. So you know what that means as far as the channel goes, as far as the video goes. Get your seasickness tablets out, guys, because you're in for a bumpy ride. So I'll try to keep it as still as possible, not move around the room like this, guys, so you're getting all seasick and all that. I'll do my best to keep it still, and I'll actually treat you by standing it up in a minute so you can see what I'm doing. I am on the F4R Renault Clio engine, guys. So we have been waiting for bearings on this, crank bearings. Well, not assumed, but I just had it in my head that the customer had ordered bearings for this and he hadn't. So we've managed to get them today, guys. And I'm just doing the sort of dummy build. Isaac very kindly, before he was off yesterday, he balanced the crank assembly because we were waiting for the nice Helix clutch kit to come. The previous one was wrong. And as you can see, I've got the crank in. There's a little bit of Plastigauge on one of the mains there, guys. I've just been Plastigauge in the mains, and I've done number 3 of the big ends to see what clearance we've got there, and I don't know. So main bearing wise, if I just get me Plastigauge, I know a lot of people say, oh, I wouldn't rely on Plastigauge, but like we've always said, we go on about this quite a lot, guys. It's whether you can measure with verniers, micrometers. You can measure the shower, you can measure the bearing journal on the crank, you can measure the housing of the rod, but as a final check, belt and braces, this is an actual physical, visible test as to what the clearance pretty much is. What you do, if you haven't watched the videos before or you don't know anything about Plastigauge, what it is literally plasticine, and it comes in strips like this, look, so you can see in there. There's little strips, and what you do is you just cut off a length that you want, which is slightly shorter than the actual width of the journal that you're putting it on. And what you do is you just lay it, no oil on the crank bearings, you just put the length on the top, as close as you can to being the very top, put the cap on, torque it up, and then release it, and when you take the cap off, you get a squashed bit of plasticine. And here is your gauge that Plastigauge give you, and you can see this side is inches, so you've got 1 thou, 1.5, 2 thou, and basically all you do, well, this side here, look, is metric, but we won't go on about that because that means nothing to me when I'm measuring this. I like the good old-fashioned imperial. So all you do is you see this red bit on the side here, you put that next to it, and you can see that red bit there is a lot bigger than the actual gauge on my journal. So that means it's more than 1 thou. So basically, the wider the Plastigauge, the less the clearance because it's squashing it down more, thus making it wider. So you can see we've got a bit more than 1 thou. We'll go for 1.5 thou here, and you can see there it is a bit more clearance than 1.5 thou. If we put the 2 thou, sort of more than 2. So it's in between 1.5 and 2. So we've got about 1.7, 1.8 thou of running clearance, guys. And then if I just get my vernier, as they call it in engineering, and measure in imperial, if we measure that journal just across there, we've got just over 2 inches of journal there and about 1.8. So that's about 0.9 of 1 thou per inch of journal diameter, which is absolutely bang on, guys. We try and aim for about 0.8 to, on the maximum I would say 1.2, but try and aim for 1 thou, but 0.8, slightly on the tight side, that's even better for a performance engine, which is exactly what this is, because not only is it an F4R, which is usually a normally aspirated 182, 172, I think this is a 182 Clio Sport, but this one is turbocharged, so we want to run those clearances a little bit tighter, really make sure we're going to get plenty of oil pressure, no issues. So that is the mains done, guys, and now we're in for doing the big ends. So first of all, we've got King bearings. So these are King race bearings, and you can see I've got the bearings laid out here for the Conrod journals. If you have a very close look, you can see that bearing is slightly shinier than that bearing. And that's because these are a sputter bearing. So on the con rods, sometimes you can get sputter bearings, which are these, which is for high performance, high torque, like diesels have them, tend to have them, can have them. But King have obviously supplied a sputter bearing on this one because it's a King race bearing, basically. So rule of thumb, not always, but with King, the shiny one is the stock, sort of stock material. That's an aluminium bearing, which is a softer compound. This duller one here is a lead-free bearing, which is tougher. So that one goes in the con rod. And the reason for that is because the con rod is what gets the load. So you got it firing on the piston crown, pushing down on the crank. So this one here goes in the con rod. It's important to get that correct. And this softer material goes in the cap. So we make sure that we get that correct, guys. There we go. How's that? Can you see me? Put your seasickness tablets away now. So what I'm going to do, these bearings, if you've noticed, they come with no tag. And that means a little tag sometimes you get which locates it into the con rod. These bearings and the standard Renault bearings do not have them. So what you've got to do is push them down. If I do one in a cap, you'll be able to see. But what I do is push it down and centralise it as best you can in the cap and the rod. So I'll just push that in like that. See that? That's in the centre now. No tag, but that is absolutely fine. And it's in the centre. So what we do, guys, we grease these bolts up with the old ARP fastener grease. And these rods are a max speeding rod supplied by the customer. Nothing wrong with max speeding rods, guys. I'm telling you now, they're probably made in the same factory as all the rest. Instructions, book of instructions, very helpful. Gives you ring gaps. It gives you how to mount the piston onto the rod. Really, really helpful little manual, actually. But down here in this little chart, which ARP usually give you if you buy some bolts from them, but ARP 2000 is what comes in these max speeding rods, which are the pretty much standard uprated bolt. And what it does is give you material, so which one it is. It gives you the thread size, it gives you the stretch, and it gives you the foot-pounds of the torque setting. If you can either do it stretch or torque. This time I'm going to do it torque for doing the Plastigauge. So what you do is look which bolt it is. I've measured across the threads, and it gives you about 950 in imperial, which is 3/8, and it gives you the length of it as well, 1.6, so that's 1.6 inch of thread. ARP 2000, it gives you the stretch there in the middle, which is 5.5 to 6 thou if you were to do it that way, and it gives you a torque in feet-pounds, which is 45 foot-pounds, guys. So I'm going to torque them up. In fact, I think this is one I've done earlier. So what I always do is torque one, then I go back to the original one and make sure it hasn't moved. And then what we do is we undo it. Before now, I've undone it using a torque wrench, and I've been moaned at. So what I'm going to do is undo it with me bar here. Then I'm not going to get moaned at in the comments, hopefully. So there we go. Undo that. This is a bit of a techie video, isn't it, this one? Isaac's, say it's a long weekend this weekend, so Isaac's gone to the Devon County show because he's from Farmerstark and he loves a Devon County show, really. So what I do when I do that, guys, is it's all right to give it a little tap. Basically, because these are doweled on, these caps, it's very difficult to get the caps off once they're in position. So what I tend to do, undo the bolts all the way so they can come out. Then I wind them in a couple of threads and just give each bolt a little tap so it parts the cap from the rod. The reason that I screw them in a couple of threads is if you don't, you run the risk of damaging the edge of the thread in the rod or the edge of the thread of the bolt or both, and then you find that it don't go in or just chews it up. So if you wind it in a couple of threads, give it a little tap, it's not going to damage it. Just a little tip, a little trick. So if I remove that cap now, we've got a nice bit of Plastigauge, and that actually looks quite nice, that does. I'm going to measure this, guys, and we have got, actually, we've got pretty much exactly the same, about 1.8, sorry. And this journal is a bit smaller, that's probably about 1.8 inch journal, that, in fact, I think it is. So we've got 1 thou per inch, which is absolutely wonderful. I'm over the moon with that. It's on the middle side, so as opposed to the bottom side or the top side, and really happy with that. So next step with this, clean that Plastigauge off. Very important you get all that off. I'm going to get these put on, oiled up mine, so you have to pull the rod down away from the journal, make sure there's oil in that bearing, because obviously we've just Plastigauged it, so we've done it dry. And continue to build this one. Get the sump on, get the oil pump on, a few bits and bobs, and then that is another one gone, guys. Very quickly, Isaac and I have been having a chat, and John, actually, over the last week or so. Been a little bit of a strange 6 months here, really. Usually we have a bit of a quiet period from sort of November running up to Christmas. You can understand that, really, because it's coming up to Christmas. Everyone's got more important things to do than spend thousands of pounds on their engine, unless you don't tell the wife. And then afterwards, running up to spring, we sort of tend to get a bit busier. But this year, very strangely, not had a busy period at all, really. We've had a few engines come in, obviously like these ones here. We've got this Rover V8 or the TVR V8 to do. I've been cleaning up bits there. But to be honest, we haven't got a massive amount more, and the phone's been very quiet. Not just for us, but for many people in small business, in the motor industry. I know that, because they're really all the people that I speak to. Could be other industries. I know that YouTube, and I can tell by some of the channels that I watch, YouTube has gone a bit quiet too. Definitely on the, not just the revenue, but the views side. There's channels that I watch where they've got hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and they usually get, you know, there's a certain amount of views, say like 80,000, 100,000, and they seem to have died right off. So whether YouTube is not pushing them in an algorithm, because obviously YouTube is all about advertisement. So what happens is whoever's got a channel is a content creator. You create content, you work with YouTube or Google, they push you around, you create the content, you basically have an arrangement on divvying out the revenue. So it's in their interest to push you around. You get X percentage, they get X percentage. But for companies like myself, where really the channel is predominantly sort of more of an advertising, because we're obviously doing it for a business, it can have a big effect if we're sort of pushed out the algorithm. Don't get so many new viewers, because obviously viewers mean for us potential clients, which is revenue for the business, isn't it? So we are, as like a step on each time with this affects. So basically, I think whether it's to do with this war, whether it's to do with our government, everyone's a little bit panicky at the minute about spending. Seems like a bit of a recession time, really. So yeah, we've had a bit of a chat. It may get to the point where if it continues, we might have to look at scaling down or something like that. I'm hoping that we don't have to do that. Obviously, we've got assets and projects and stuff we can sell, what have you, but we could do with it picking up. So if you've got anything out there, guys, send it our way and stop me from having sleepless nights. It does bother you. When you know, there might be plenty of people out there that are small business owners. They go through the same thing. Only because I've got a channel, I get to talk to people and I get to see their response in the comments, emails, stuff like that. But there's probably loads of people out there that are suffering the same sort of thing and they don't get to speak to anyone about it. Yeah, I think they're on their own, really. But no, it sort of happens to the best of us. But we're just hoping, fingers crossed, that it all starts picking up and it's just a phase that we're going through at the moment. But yeah, it can be quite sort of daunting, really. When you're busy, you tend to sort of not really look at how much it costs for the overheads of running a business, as small as it is, really. But there we go, guys. If you own a small business or you're going through the same thing, or you sort of have got any opinion on what it might be, please do comment down below. Very interested to read them. Have a great bank holiday weekend, guys. See you next week when it's going to be absolutely scorching here by the sounds of it. See you later, guys. Cheers.